Hi everyone, this is Frank DeMore. I'm going to connect the dots between what's going on in the news and how it relates to Bible prophecy. And this is for September the 18th of 2013. Now, as usual, what I've been showing you is one of the prophecies that haven't been fulfilled yet is Psalm 83. And I need to talk about this first because this is a very, very important war that hasn't been fulfilled yet. But we know that it's rapidly heading toward us. How do we know that? It's because the Lord gave us all of the nations, as you can see in Psalm 83. He gave us all of the nations who are going to try to wipe out Israel at the end times. Now, for the purpose of the news that I'll be connecting, what I'm going to do is I put up the red arrows for you, showing you who it is that's in the news, so that when you see the arrows, it may help you. And if you see the flags, it may help you put a visual, making a connection to what the Lord has shown us compared to what we're seeing in the news. So as you can see, the arrow, Syria is involved in this war. We see the Lebanese. And of course, in with the Lebanese is the Hezbollah. And then you'll also see the Hezbollah again with the northern Lebanon or the northern Lebanese. And there the name in the Old Testament, you'd see their name as Jabal. Whereas modern day Syrians were Assyria. So for the purpose of that, you see the flags. The article that I'm going to be reading from now, connecting the dots, the headline reads as follows: Iran, Syria, Lebanon. Alliance greater danger to Israel than Al-Qaeda envoy. So what we see here, first of all, is that the news is showing us that these three players, this trinity of nations, if you will, is a lot more dangerous than Al-Qaeda. Now, Al-Qaeda is a terrorist group that the United States has been fighting in Afghanistan. They've been fighting in Pakistan with the drones, and that they've been fighting in Iraq. So let's go to the article. I'm going to point out, you'll see it here, a keystone in this video at the 45-second mark. Keep in mind the words that you're going to hear. All right? Let me go over to the article, play the video, and I'll connect the dots for you. Now, before I connect the dots for you, and remember I yellowed the keystone remark. And the reason why I'm bringing this up to you is this. And I've warned this many, many times. You'll see that this is one of my reports that I issued on June the 14th, 2013. Now in this report, you'll see the picture that I already showed you. But this is what I warned about, and you'll notice what I said here about the key. Let me just read my own quote. Just 2 days ago, I warned you that Syria was going to play a major role in the last days prophecies. Just about exactly the same thing I said again today. I said for years I have been telling you that Syria may be the key, right, to how the Psalm 83 war begins. Now, I just didn't write this. This was back in June. You could see it. It's always been up there. You can go to the archives and just click in. All you have to do is put in the name of this, and it will bring you to my site, and you could read it for yourself. Now, going back, as I said that I was going to bring you to, a video showing us about this keystone, and how I'm really happy to see that we have people in high places that are saying the exact same thing that I've been warning about. Watch this. I'm going to get this video for you. It's going to be coming at the 45-second mark.
The Israeli ambassador to the US says Tel Aviv prefers Al-Qaeda-affiliated guys to groups backed by Iran. Michael Oren says he's kept a close watch on Tel Aviv's evolving messages on Syria since its chemical weapons were brought into the spotlight. Oren told the Israeli daily, the Jerusalem Post, that Israel's initial message was that it had always wanted Syrian President Bashar al-Assad to go. He said that's because Tel Aviv always preferred bad guys not supported by Iran to those backed by the Islamic Republic, even though the bad guys had links to Al-Qaeda. Oren said Israel sees a strategic arc that extends from Tehran to Damascus and to Beirut as the greatest danger to Tel Aviv. He added that the Assad government was the keystone in that arc. That's why, Oren said, Israel has wanted him to go, either before or after the outbreak of the unrest in Syria. Israel's hostility toward Lebanon has also increased after Hezbollah defeated Israel during two conflicts in 2000 and 2006.
All right, so two things. Number one, as you could see, the exact same people that the Lord told us that there was going to be an alliance, this confederate, as we see in Psalm 83. They're already coming together against Israel. And we see Iran, who's going to play a major role, but not in the Psalm 83 prophecy physically. They are definitely involved as the Iran is supporting the nations, if you will, their surrogate nations, the Lebanese and the Palestinians and the Syrians and whatnot. So we're seeing again the same nations that the Lord told us was going to be coming against the nation of Israel. Now, the lady said in this news broadcast that Israel lost the war in 2006, which was not the truth. What happened is that after Israel went in, after I think it was 7,000 rockets, very, very patient, they waited that long. No other nation would probably wait that long, but Israel did. They rolled in their tanks, they went into Gaza and Lebanon, and then they pulled back. They didn't lose the war. They never lost the war. And we know that there's another war coming, Psalm 83, and they're not going to lose that war either. So as you can see, there is a key, and that key was told to us, or at least shown to us, in the current events that Syria may be that nation, the key nation, the keystone nation, if you will, by the ambassador of Israel, to start the Psalm 83 war. Now, the UN has also jumped in the news talking about Israel in the Syrian war. So let's go over and see what the DECA file says. UN Mideast envoy Robert Suri warned Tuesday that the clashes between Syria's army and rebels on the Golan risk drawing Israel into the civil war. And this is, again, some of the warnings that I've already issued. Now, the Golan was taken by Israel in a previous war. This is land that Bashar al-Assad wants back. And technically, if you look this up, you'll see that Israel and Syria is still at a stage of war. They never abandoned it. So, are they going to be drawn into a civil war? I think it's going to be much worse than that. And the reason why I say that is specifically because what God showed us in Psalm 83. There's going to be a major war. All of those nations, let me go over to my site, all of the nations coming together. There's no doubt when they do come together against Israel, it is going to be one of the worst regional wars since the 1973 Yom Kippur War. Now, moving on, I want to show you this photo again because now we're going to be centered around the Hagarenes. And number 4, that's the Egyptian. We already covered the Assyrians or modern-day Syria people. And you notice the Hezbollah that we already talked about in southern Lebanon and northern Lebanon. So, according to the article, Israel faces an uphill battle with Al-Qaeda groups in Sinai, says the IDF commander, or this is the Israeli Defense Force. So, what we see here is problems in the Sinai that the Egyptian leader now, who is his name, is Mansour, along with the general Sisi. They've been attacking some of these right-winged terrorist groups, Al-Qaeda-sponsored, Muslim Brotherhood-sponsored terrorists. So take a look at this. It says, it is not clear at the present how much longer the Egyptians will maintain such a broad effect in Sinai. Israel is watching developments from the side and in the line with the regional policy in the face of the upheaval in the Arab world is trying not to intervene. See, they're trying not to intervene, but we know that, again, pointing to the prophecy, there's no doubt that that's what's going to happen. Not only intervene, but they're going to wipe them out. Israel wipe all these nations out. The security relations between the two countries, which grew stronger during the Marsi period. Now, Marsi is the one that they just put on the sideline. He is the Muslim brother who was trying to install Sharia law. Have seen an additional improvement since the rise of the generals. This is also due to a convergence of interests in regard to the other element in the southern configuration. Now, the Hamas leadership in the Gaza Strip. Hamas is now under heavy pressure stemming from Egypt's destruction of the tunnels and the numerous restrictions imposed on the use of the Rafah terminal. So a lot of things going on in the Middle East affecting the same nations that the Lord showed us that are listed in the prophecies. Now, you don't have to guess what's going to happen as far as the war. Will it happen or will it not happen? That's not a debatable issue because the Lord's prophecies always come to pass and Egypt will be involved. Now, at the present time, the Egyptian government under Sisi, the general, and Mansour seems to want to stem the tide of the Islamic influence, the radical Islamic influence. They're trying to install the Sharia law. But something is going to happen, and it just may be that if Syria is attacked by Israel, that the Egyptians will abandon trying to get rid of the right-wing terrorists. They'll join them, and they'll attack the Israelis, and which would obviously fulfill the Psalm 83. Now, nobody can tell you exactly for sure if that's going to happen, but at this point it looks very, very possible. Now moving on, let me show you again where we look at these arrows here. We click on this, we get a bigger picture. Again, number 5, the Hezbollah. And we see number 9, the Hezbollah. And we're talking about these tunnels. Assad using tunnels to smuggle arms to who? Hezbollah. That's why I marked it for you so you could see it very plainly. And if the Hezbollah gets these chemical weapons, and any of these chemical weapons are used against Israel, it's over. I'll tell you that right now, it's over. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, will just swarm in to Damascus, and you will not only see the Psalm 83 war being fulfilled, but you will see prophesied about the nation of Syria wiped out, as it says in Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 24 through 27, and Isaiah 17:1, where it talks about Damascus being left in a ruinous heap. So according to what we see here about this news that came out today is September the 18th. You see a picture of the tunnels that they're building, smuggling these arms in there. It says opposition sources reportedly told the Saudi newspaper that Assad regime is smuggling chemical weapons to Hezbollah through tunnels connecting the Syrian and Lebanese villages. So right here you have the Syrians who are involved in Psalm 83. You have the Lebanon people. You have the Hezbollah, all of which are mentioned in the prophecy. So what part of the future don't you recognize? Although it hasn't happened yet, we know it is going to happen. Now, I put this photo up yesterday. You see Jerusalem a burdensome stone. And according to Zechariah 12:3, this is what the Lord said. In that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. I know that there's a lot of people who are not familiar with prophecy. So for their sake, please understand this. When you take a look at the yellow highlighted area, what does it say? Does it say some of the nations, a few of the nations, Not at all. It says all the people of the earth will be gathered together against it. That means everyone. Right now, the Jews are in a tug of war, the stalled peace agreement over this area right here, the Temple Mount area. They want this area back that was lost in the 1967 war. And the peace agreement, or the peace process, has been stalled for almost 4 years now. And the period of 4 years, Israel has seen some of their enemies or allies drop to the side. And so we're starting not only see all the players in the Middle East that are mentioned in Psalm 83, but we're starting to see the nations falling away from Israel that used to be friends with Israel. As a result, we know that the beginning of Zechariah 12:3 is already commenced. Now, in relation to nuclear war and the mass destruction by these weapons of mass destruction, here's another headline. The world should pressure Israel to destroy its WMD, Syrian Deputy FM says. Now, one thing that I wanted to bring out even before I go to the article, well, I'll go right to the article. All right, so there's going to be a video here. I'll play this video, and then I'll connect the dots.
Now, Syria calls on the international community to put pressure on Israel to destroy its weapons of mass destruction.
We hope the international community is noted that Syria does not have any intention to use these weapons, forces Israel to give up its nuclear, biological and chemical weapons.
The Syrian Deputy Foreign Minister told Press TV that Damascus welcomes Russia's plan for the Arab country's chemical arsenal. Faisal Mardon added that Damascus will firmly respond to any Israeli aggression on Syria's soil, but not through a chemical attack. He also accused Turkey of escalating tensions in the region in order to serve the interests of Israel and the United States. Let's talk to Jim W. Dean, Managing Editor of Veterans Today from Atlanta. Welcome to the program. So, Mr. Dean, Israel has weapons of mass destruction, and that's no secret. What makes Tel Aviv eligible to possess WMDs while it's technically at war with many regional countries?
Well, it's very simple. They have a big brother, the United States, that allows them to get away with it. And I heard one report that in defending the claims about their weapons were a threat, that because they were a democratic country, everybody knows that Israel wouldn't use their WMD offensively. But actually, some years ago, during an election, during a budget debate, the left was complaining about all the money being spent not only on a conventional military, but they were talking about the nuclear development themselves. And in one of the debates, one of the candidates went ahead and admitted, they said, we don't really have the nuclear and the WMD for defensive because our conventional military is enough to take care of things. That's an offensive platform. So when we want to negotiate with our neighbors, we can do so by holding that WMD gun to their head. And then later on, in the last 10 years, we've had a lot of declassified intelligence here in the United States. And virtually every military intelligence report has always concluded that Israel had complete conventional weapons superiority against any potential enemies in the region, and their weapons of mass destruction was not needed for defensive purposes. It was a completely offensive platform.
Indeed. And do you think the momentum is being created for an international action to bring Tel Aviv to abandon its nuclear weapons?
We should, and really I've been surprised. The archival record is just absolutely full of everything that you would need to prove why they did it. The French started helping them initially. They were stealing nuclear material from the British. The U.S. during the Johnson years allowed them to steal nuclear material here. So the whole record of how Israel was allowed to become a nuclear weapons powerhouse in the Middle East, which was really a destabilizing force, that has been covered up because really it's been a big mistake. And that's what's had everybody, and that's the real big problem. So I think we should bet the farm now on putting Israel on the spot that whatever, if the West really wants peace and stability in the Middle East, they basically have to get Israel to turn all their WMD over to an international supervision also.
Indeed. Well, we'll leave it there for the time being. Many thanks to Jim W.D. managing out of it.
All right, so now what you hear there, they're trying to get the international forces to impose this restriction against Israel. And it just gives you a little bit of insight of the world coming against Israel. And Israel is the only democratic nation in that area. And if you were to remove Israel from this area, which will never happen, by the way, because the Lord is protecting them, but that if you removed them, you would have nothing but Islamists through the whole region. And that would be a disaster to the free world. Now, in conclusion to this one section, just let me say this. We know that North Korea is much more of a threat than Israel would ever be with weapons of mass destruction. And the new leader has warned over and over again that he would use these weapons of mass destruction against the United States. But you don't hear people like him focusing on the Koreans. No, it's Israel. And I believe that, and if you stay tuned and you keep your eyes on the news, you will see that in the coming months, and if we're here that long, the coming years, you will witness more events, more news like this, showing that the world is turning against Israel. Without a doubt, God's word will be fulfilled. All right, now I'm going to turn my attention, another map with the arrows, and you'll see the first arrow, the red arrow, pointing to Russia. Now, in Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 2, this points to Gog and Magog, or what we know from Scripture, Russia. You'll see the old names that you'll see listed in the prophecy in Ezekiel chapter 38. So this is a really good map to get a visual of who the people are that the Lord talked about. And then also in Ezekiel chapter 38, which is going to be the war after the Somme War, Ezekiel 38:5 points to Iran, or in the Old Testament, they are the Persians, modern day Iran. So make it very easy. So I'm pointing out both of these nations because just like we saw the alliance between Iran, the Lebanon, and Syria, there's other alliances getting ready for the Ezekiel chapter 38 war that, as I said, would happen after the Psalm 83 war. Now, two of the players, Putin and the new leader for the Iranians, this President Hassan Rouhani, they are making an alliance. And it shouldn't come to any surprise because God had already showed us this alliance in Ezekiel chapter 38. So let's go over to the article. Both Russia and Iran made it clear that they would support Syria. You getting the connection here? In the case of U.S. aggression, and this was certainly the main reason that pushed the Obama administration to have second thoughts about an attack on Syria. Now, because if the United States were to bomb Syria right away, it could have possibly launched World War III. And who would have been in the middle of it? Israel. Supposedly the United States ally, Israel. Now it says, although Syria and Iran have been the targets of the latest Western threats, Moscow knows that Russia and Syria are the ultimate objectives of the U.S. military and diplomatic strategy. In recent years, Russia has sent a military alliance, the Collective Security Treaty Organization, which has become a parish of the West and NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. That's who that stands for. Now, the war on Siberia, the independence of Kosovo, U.S. support for pro-Western forces in Georgia, Ukraine, and Azerbaijan, and the development of the parts of the U.S. defense missile system in Europe are clear evidence of the West's contempt for Russia and its interests. regional conflict. I mean, you could see it all over the Middle East. The U.S. has also pledged to undermine Moscow's Euro-Asia Union project, which is seen as a reaction of the former Soviet Union. Now, against the backdrop of U.S. warmongering policies, Russia and Iran have expanded their relations significantly in recent months. The offensive led by the U.S. and its allies, especially France, in the Middle East has destabilized the entire region, and it is a fact that is driving both nations into an alliance. So we see from Scripture that alliance had to be developed. But now, us in the last days, or in the latter years, as you see in the prophecy in Ezekiel 38, we're actually seeing how it's coming about. The Lord told us who was going to be coming together in this alliance, and it is a privilege of the generation who is familiar and has the wisdom of the Lord to understand exactly what's going on in our time, because the prophecy is about to be fulfilled. And it isn't a coincidence that Russia and Iran have made an alliance. Now, when you get into my book, I'll show you of proof and evidence showing you that all of these nations, just about that are listed in the Ezekiel war, have made a military agreement, alliance, and friendship agreements, economic agreements with Russia. Again, not a coincidence. Now, I've been warning that the Iranians are never going to give up on their nuclear programs. Never. I've taken you to my site, and I've shown the people that it's just not going to happen. So let me show you two short videos just to prove my point that the Iranians are not going to give up their quest to get this nuclear device. The ex-president of Iran, Ahmadinejad, he has been the most vocal of all the presidents as of late, saying that he's going to wipe out the nation of Israel. He knows, or at least he wanted to get a hold of the bombs so that he could use it against Israel, and Israel knows it. And this is why there's tension between Israel and Iran. Iran, if they continue on, and there's no need to think that they won't, because I'm telling you, they're going to not stop. They're going to try to get this bomb. Israel is going to have to step in, or somebody's going to have to step in to stop them. And I believe that this could be the catalyst for the war. So watch the video.
Let's take it out to Iran, where the Foreign Ministry says the country will continue its uranium enrichment despite a new UN resolution. The ministry says Iran has a right to enrich, and the country intends to continue with its program. On Friday, both the US and Russia sponsored a new UN resolution which reaffirms 3 previous documents that impose sanctions on Iran for refusing to stop uranium enrichment. The ministry says no fuel supply guarantee has been offered to Tehran, leaving the country with no choice but to enrich its own uranium for fuel. But Iran's official news agency says it will not give up uranium enrichment even if the West should guarantee a supply of nuclear fuel to the country.
So whether they give them oil or don't give them oil, they're going to still continue on with their project. Here is another one.
Iran's Foreign Minister Manouchehr Mottaki says Tehran will never halt uranium enrichment even if the West guarantees its need for nuclear fuel. Mottaki made the remarks at a joint press conference with his visiting Venezuelan counterpart. Zhang Hui has more on the story.
Speaking after talks with Venezuelan Foreign Minister Nicolas Maduro, Mottaki confirmed Iran's intentions to continue its nuclear activities despite international objections. He said that the Western countries are not trustworthy and spoke out about what he saw as the biggest hindrance to Tehran's developing atomic activities.
We have seen the promises of different countries while cooperating on peaceful nuclear activities with Iran. And the worst of them in breaking their promises is America.
Venezuela has also repeatedly challenged Washington, notably by defending Iran's nuclear activities, despite strong condemnation by the United States and Europe. Maduro referred to Venezuela's ties with Iran as a relationship between brothers. Washington and its European allies have accused Iran of seeking nuclear weapons. But Iran says it wants nuclear technology to make electricity so it can export more of its hydrocarbons. Sorry, CCTV.
All right, so you have the proof there of what they were saying, that they're not going to stop. And they won't. The United States won't do anything about it, and Israel will probably be forced to go in alone. Now, in Ezekiel chapter 38, that's exactly what we see, that Israel is on their own. And when you put Zechariah 12:3 together, knowing that all the nations are going to be coming against Israel, you'll know that Israel is going to have to fend for themselves. So let me go over to this other article here. We'll go over to the link to give you the link, but just so that you know, the spiritual leader, actual leader, who's above the president, this President Khomeini, he is one of the men, just like Ahmadinejad, who believes that Israel should be wiped off the face of the earth. So it would be advantageous to this man, with his major goal is to what? It's to wipe out Israel, and you'll see this. But let me go over to the article. It says Khomeini calls for flexible nuclear diplomacy. Hinting at a possible diplomatic flexibility in the upcoming nuclear talks, Khomeini says that wrestlers sometimes show flexibility and technical reasons, but does not forget about opponent nor the main objective. Keep this in mind, because Iran does have a main objective. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah al-Khamenei, said Tuesday that the flexibility was sometimes necessary in diplomacy as his negotiators prepared for new talks on the government's controversial nuclear program, and reports broke that the U.S. President Barack Obama and the Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has exchanged letters. So this is really the heart of the matter here. Iran's supreme leader added, the wrestler sometimes shows flexibility for technical reasons, but he does not forget about his opponent nor about his, get this, main objective. So what is the main objective? On September 11th, Rouhani said that he had the tactic support of Khomeini for flexibility in talks with 6 major powers that are expected to resume in the coming weeks. Rouhani has said that he wants to allay Western concerns, but that he will not renounce Iran's goal on an independent silver nuclear program. So there you go. That's the objective. Now he talks about a wrestler with his technical maneuvers, but here's the deal. The bottom line is this. They're not going to give up the nuclear program. The nuclear program that would give them the bomb. And obviously Iran understands this, and they understand that Israel would have to attack them to stop them from getting their hands on a nuclear weapon. Now, if Israel does attack Iran, there's many articles out there that shows that Russia said that any attack on their allies would be the same as attacking Russia. And that in itself could cause the Ezekiel chapter 38 war. So everything is coming together. It's emerging all at the same time, and they're the very nations. Now, one thing that I want to point out in ending this video for today is I'd like to assure everybody, at least at this point, this is what it looks like. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has been studying the Bible. And I'm pretty sure, I can't prove this, but if you're studying the Bible, and especially if you're the leader of Israel, and you know about prophecies that pertain to your nation, it would behoove the Prime Minister to understand everything he could possibly understand about what's going to happen in Israel to his people, because the Lord has already shown it to us. And so many of you may not know this, but I did post this before, that Benjamin Netanyahu has put the nuke talk aside, if you can believe that. I mean, this is one of the major issues around the world. But he's put it aside for what? Take a look at this. Netanyahu puts Iran's nuke on hold, spends a late afternoon discussing Moses. Let me go right over to the article and I'll get into it. This is from the Jerusalem Post. This is obviously from today. It says this: Syria can wait. Iran is not going anywhere. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu set aside 2 hours Tuesday afternoon to discuss with a group of rabbis and scholars why God did not let Moses pass over to the Promised Land. And Moses went up to the plains and Moab and a mountain of Nebo. Netanyahu read in his baritone voice from the last chapter of Deuteronomy. And the Lord showed him all the land of Gilead, and Dan, and all the Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, and all the land of Yehudah. As far as the uttermost sea, I have caused thee to see it with thine eyes, but thou shalt not go over there. Now, what Benjamin Netanyahu was asking is, he didn't seem like that was really fair to Moses, considering that he took the people out. And he had some scholars that he invites to the Bible study, and they had talked about, when you read the article, one of the scholars mentioned that God had chosen one man to actually deliver the Jews out of bondage. But then he chose another leader to actually bring them over. So he used one person specifically to do one thing, and then he used another. Now Joshua actually brought him in. Joshua was a warrior. Joshua took care of the nation in its infancy going into the Promised Land. They needed somebody with the sword at that time, so God used him. So, in light of all of this, I want to assure everybody, at least I'm pretty confident in this, that this man is well aware of Ezekiel chapter 38, and I'm praying that he's well aware of Psalm 83 as well. And knowing that the leader of Israel is involved in a Bible study, when you read the article, I mean, he has the Bible study at his residence, and he invites these leaders into the Bible study. So he's studying the Bible, which is fantastic. Now, I really believe that you're not going to hear any news about Benjamin Netanyahu's thoughts about any specific prophecy. At least I haven't heard anything yet. But I believe that he knows, and the reason why you're not going to hear it in the news that he's saying, well, I know about Ezekiel and I know about Psalm 83, is because he doesn't want to appear to be some religious fanatic who is going to base on what he does for Israel on a prophecy. But I believe in my heart and in my mind is telling me that he knows and he trusts God's word, and the judgments that he is making now for his nation are based on what God is showing him in the Bible. Now, we're all going to find out shortly, because prophecy is definitely going to be fulfilled, and everything we're seeing in the news is pointing to that. Now, I almost forgot to give this prophecy and connect the dots. This is very important because, again, this is at the heart of Israel, the heart of Jerusalem. Now, in the prophecy, we know that the prophet Daniel in 9:27 talks about the Antichrist, this covenant that's going to be signed. Look at this. And he, which talks about the Antichrist, a real person, he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. And this is actually a period of 7 years. And in the midst of the week, or in the midst of the 7 years, or if you want to break it down, exactly 3.5 years into when he makes this covenant, he, being the Antichrist, shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. In other words, the sacrifices that Israel used to do in the second temple, in the first and the second temple, they are going to do again in the third temple that they're getting ready to build. All right? And for the overspreading of abomination he shall make desolate. So he's going to stop the sacrifices exactly 3.5 years into this 7-year period of time. And it says, even until the consummation and determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So there's going to be war until this prophecy is fulfilled. It's going to be continuous war. And that's what we've been seeing. Now Jesus in Matthew talks about, as we can see similar, it says, when ye therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet stand in a holy place. And what's the holy place he's talking about? It's the third temple. Now, we know that it's not the temple, the second temple, because Jesus, on the Olive of Discord, he told his disciples that that temple was going to be torn down, and not one block would be, or stone would be resting upon itself. And that happened in 70 AD when that second temple was torn down. So what the Lord was talking about was not the second temple. He was referring to the third temple that was going to be built that the Antichrist would be going into. Then he goes on to say, whosoever readeth, let him understand. And I'm praying now that I'm making this very clear so that people who didn't understand this would in fact understand it. Now Paul also writes to us about this Antichrist in 2 Thessalonians 2:4. This is what it says. Who opposes and exalted himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So again, he couldn't have been referring to the second temple that was going to be torn down, which happened in 70 AD. Must have been a future temple, the temple of God, which was going to be reestablished by the Jews. And I put up many videos showing you that they have everything in order, and there's a day, a second, that has been destined to begin the building of this third temple. Now, there's been a lot of activity in this area, in the Temple Mount. We see this, just like the birth pains that the Lord talked about. We're seeing the news about this. Let me go over to one of the first articles. The flag and get the Arab routers off the temple. In response to the Arab rioting on the Temple Mount this morning, Deputy Speaker of the Knesset, Moshe Feiglin, which was the Lugard Party, that's what this is, said, I would like to shake the hands of the Israeli police and would ask them to quickly distance the Arab rioters from the Temple Mount. This is a site that has been set apart for prayer and worship of God, recognized both nationally and internationally, and those who do not know how to respect this and throw stones and rocks there must be distanced. The Israeli police have shown us this morning how effective they can truly be in keeping order without any trespassing upon the rights of the Jews who are there to pray, he continued. Now, one of the things that I've been watching, this leader has been pushing for the Arabs to allow the Jews to go up and pray. And it's becoming more intense, and I believe, I can't tell you, just like I can't tell you exactly how the Psalm 83 war is going to start, I do know that the third temple will be built. Is it going to be built because rioters continue to riot on this and to try to injure anyone who goes up near that mosque to pray if you're not Muslim? It is a possibility that the Israelis will get so upset and so fit to be tied that they'll move in and force their way, because they actually own it. They took it over in 1967, and they've been allowing the Arabs to run it. But it certainly looks like, with all the problems, the Israelis are getting ready to take it back and to install their laws so that the Jews can also go up and pray, and anybody else. And that, my friends, would be war. The Arabs would see that as an altercation for war. Now here is another article. I'm going to just pull this right up. It says Regev calls for separate prayer days for Jews, Muslim on the Temple Mount. And you'll see that this was 2 days ago. There should be separate days for the Jews, the Jewish and the Muslim prayer in the Temple Mount. Knesset Interior Committee Chairwoman Miri Regev of, again, this is the same Ludwig party. She said this on Monday. You're talking about war. They even mention it in this article. Speaking at a ruckus meeting on the police's treatment of the Jewish visitors to the holy site ahead of Sukkot, she said, "We will allow Jews to visit the Mount, and we don't want to disturb the Muslims who are praying. Why don't the police decide that if the Muslims don't allow Jews to visit without disturbances, we'll have days for the Jews to access the Mount and days for the Muslims?" MK Ahmad Tabai Ayul Tailal said Jewish visitors disturbed Muslim worshippers, but that the occasion is temporary and the government in East Jerusalem is temporary. The Crusaders passed, the British passed, and so will the Israelis. In other words, they know, or at least they believe, the Muslims believe that Israel is going to be destroyed. They're going to be passed. That's what they're telling you here. And it is not going to happen. That's not what the Lord shows us. We know that there's problems on the Temple Mount. We know where it's going to lead. And whatever happens there, we know that at the end of the day, what's going to happen? The third temple is going up. And the world is, in the view of the Islamic world, they're not going to like it. Now, I didn't make, again, I keep saying this, I didn't make it up, I didn't write it. God wrote it. And I'm telling you what God is going to do. Now, you have a choice to believe what he said, or you could reject it. Everybody has the freedom to choose. But at the end of the day, you're going to see, just like it happened in Noah's generation when those people didn't believe. They didn't believe, I suppose, in Sodom and Gomorrah as well. And we saw the destruction that came. And when God makes a promise, and God says something in the Word, it comes to pass. The third temple is going to be rebuilt. There's going to be war. And we know that this area, Jerusalem, where the Temple Mount is, it's going to be a burdensome stone for everyone in this world. That's what Zechariah 12:3 is all about. We know that the Antichrist is coming because we know that the Israelis are getting very, very close to the beginning of building this temple on this Temple Mount. Now, let me give you another prophecy. I think you're going to find this interesting. In Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 through 17, this is what Jesus Christ shows us. And he, in reference to the Antichrist, it's the same Antichrist who's going to be sitting in the temple, causeth all, both small and great, rich or poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, say he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now, in my book, The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, I give you so much information about the end times cashless society and where this generation is going that it is mind-boggling. And this is the only generation who has ever been set up for one man, or as you will, he, to be able to cause the entire world to take his mark in the right hand or in the forehead, and without it, you're not going to be able to buy or sell anything. You're going to be X'd out of the economy, with no questions about it. Now, you have to tie in the Daniel 12:4 prophecy, where the Lord showed us two of the qualities or characteristics of the end times people. One of them, increased knowledge. And so with the increased knowledge that man has got only in our generation, they have come up with products and devices that are able to monitor and track people and to use a banking system in their hand. And it shows you that just like the Psalm 83 war and just like the Ezekiel war, we're advancing to fulfill this prophecy. Or at least those people who don't know the Lord will be advancing into the revelation. Now, to show you this generation is well on its way, let me just give you a little tidbit of this cashless society in this article that is called, Will Israel Be the World's First No Cash Society? Now, the government on Tuesday authorized the establishment of a committee that will examine ways to eliminate cash from the Israeli economy and better to prevent citizens from cheating on their taxes. Now, the committee will be chaired, obviously, by this director at the Prime Minister's office. Now, look over here. It says, cash is easily passed from individual to individual, and transactions using cash can't take place without the taxman's supervision. Not so electronic transactions. With modern computers, banks can keep tabs on how much people deposit in their accounts and how much they withdraw, while credit card companies have an up to the second record on how much people spend. Now, according to many of these officials, cash is bad. I mean, if we are definitely seeing the road to the cashless society, giving the power for one man to control everything. Now, because it allows individuals to get out their tax payment responsibilities today, an enterprising tax collector cannot easily compare income and outflow. While he may suspect that a person living beyond his reported means is cheating on his taxes, there is no way to know for sure. And without solid evidence, in a cashless economy, all records will be electronic, and checking who makes what and how much they owe the taxes and collecting it before it goes into their account will be much simpler matter than theory goes. Now, officers in the Prime Minister's office declare that around the world it is recognized that cash is the key element of the illegal economy and money laundering. It allows a wide gap between reported and actual incomes, with the corresponding effect on tax revenues. By eliminating cash, sound familiar? I mean, this is what the Antichrist is going to do. By eliminating cash, the PMO said, it will be possible to expand the tax base and prevent money laundering. And the committee will study the issue from all its perspectives and make recommendations, the PMO said. So this is just one of many of the articles showing that the cashless society is coming and why they want to bring it. Again, it's not a matter of will they really do it? It's a matter of they are going to do it. It's just, when is it going to be here? We know that it's coming. We know that it's coming soon. Now, let me show you this. It says, Scene at 11, getting proposal or getting personal. Your pulse can be your new password. Again, we have to make the connection between the last days' increase of knowledge and how it can bring about a cashless society and some of the other things that are bringing about it into the skin. And you'll notice that this is a picture that I've took from a video. So let's go over to the actual report. Now this is the picture that I was showing you. I'm going to play the report for you, and it should make the back of your hair rise up, because Christ told us what to be looking for, and this nation, the United States, and other nations around the world are marching right to Revelation chapter 13.
you need the only beer that's bold enough to join you.
Take back the night.
Triple filtered, smooth finish, top shelf taste. Bud Light Platinum.
Secret passwords, PIN numbers, and credit cards may soon become a thing of the past.
Yes, your heart and your body may soon be used to keep track of just about everything. It's a new technology that is unlocking the Pulse password. Your heartbeat reveals a lot about you, and not just about your health.
There's actually unique characteristics that relate to the size of the heart, the position of the heart, and the physiology surrounding the heart.
It's as unique as your fingerprint, and now it's being used to replace passwords, key cards, bank cards, even credit cards.
It's like your personal PIN number is your heartbeat.
Imagine opening a door without a key, having your tech gadgets like smartphone or tablet unlock the second you walk into a room, or making a purchase at a store without using a credit card. It sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, but technology expert Lance Ulanoff says it's the way of our very near future.
It's going to be a way for us to interact with the world around us without having to constantly identify ourselves.
Canadian company Bionym developed this little wristband to recognize the pattern of your pulse. The wristband then transmits that information so you can perform transactions like withdrawing money without a bank card, even opening a car door without a key.
You don't have to remember anything, you don't have to do anything special.
And it's not the only concept. Motorola is developing a temporary tattoo that contains a computer chip and antenna. Also in the works, a pill that when dissolved by stomach acid turns the whole body into a kind of transmitter.
And there it is.
Security expert Rohit Sethi cracks passwords and hacks into computer systems to test them. And he says typical passwords offer virtually no protection from identity thieves.
If they're alphanumeric, and usually they are because they have to be easy to remember, they're also correspondingly easier to break into.
This new technology will pose considerable roadblocks for hackers because the heartbeat cannot be replicated.
You're not going to have a piece of paper in your pocket with your password. You're going to have it as part of your body. That means it is safer.
Well, the wristband is so in tune with its owner that if someone tries to steal it, it wouldn't work. It costs about $100 and is expected to hit stores early next year.
So there you have it. And you notice it's in the skin. This is what the Lord told us in the last days. They'll put it in your right hand or your forehead. And I'm not saying that this particular technology is the one that will be used, but I'm saying that it is a possibility that it could be. Now, there's a lot of them out there, different types of tattoos that you'd be able to deduct from your account, or VeriChip, or these other chips that are implanted into your skin as well. But I'm just showing you a broad view of the different technologies that only could have come in one generation, and that's our generation, and that's what Jesus Christ said to look for. Now, one of the other things that I've been warning about is the food crisis, and I'm saying this based on Revelation 6:6. In Revelation 6:6, make this a little bit bigger for you. And I heard a voice in the middle of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. This shows us that people will have to work all day long for one small meal. How do I know this? Because, as I said yesterday in my video, that the Lord Jesus showed us an example of how the people were going out into the field. They were being employed. They were going to work all day for a denarius. And that was the Roman currency at the time. But the Lord is showing us that in Revelation 6:6 that something obviously has happened, and the people have to work all day long for just 1 quart of wheat and a little bit more of that of barley. It's only enough food for one person, and that's 1 meal a day, not much. So that we see that the balances are going to be way out of whack. The food crisis that is going to be coming. No doubt about it. This is some of the warnings that the Lord gave to us. Now, over and over again, and I have article after article in my book as backups. As a matter of fact, one of the articles that I reported on a while back, you'll see it June of 2006 and 2007 when the food was going up. And back then I said that it's not going to stop. The climbing will continue. And that's exactly what has been happening. Every year, the prices of the food are going up. And there's many reasons for it. Now, in one of my posts, you'll see that I put up this figure of a pork, the pig that's riding on this rock at Revelation 6:6. In other words, pork is skyrocketing, the food is skyrocketing out of sight. This was from my May 12th, 2012 post. Now, there was an article that came out today, and this is a picture of it, and you'll see the pork, and it's showing you the cost of the pork. And I want to go over to that article to show you what the article says. But before I do that, look at Matthew, because Matthew 24:7, in the midst of all these different signs that he's showing us, one of the signs is famines. And we know, as the Lord showed us, things are going to be definitely out of whack, more so than any time since this world was created. So let's look at the article. And just as I warned, higher food prices to push annual household grocery bills up by 2018. And there's a close-up picture of the food receipt. Report last night claimed growing global demand for meat and grain, erratic weather, and the land given over to biofuels would push up the cost of everyday staples. Analysts at the Retail Consulting Consortium said food price inflation would add $19.6 billion to the nation's annual grocery bill by 2018, a rise of 17.8%. That's a lot. The average increase equates to more than $850 for every household in the country. Typically, households spend nearly $5,000 a year on the groceries. Neil Saunders, the consortium managing director, told the Daily Telegraph, generally, demand for food, like meat and grain, is outstripping supply, and we have run out of science now. The only way that we are going to produce more is by bringing more land into play. Weather is far more erratic, and the Lord warned about the weather. For example, the roaring of the seas and the waves, which shows us these massive storms, earthquakes, droughts, pestilence, all the different signs that he showed us. Erratic weather, tornadoes, ice, it just goes on, which affects harvests around the world and in the U.S. Particular, we have seen land that would have been used for food set aside for biofuels. So instead of being able to eat the corn, for example, you can't eat that corn because now it's been raised to put into the gas tanks. Out of all sectors of high street food, we see the highest inflation between now and 2018. An 18% increase in food prices would add 1.50 to an 800 G beef roasting joint, 25 point to a loaf of harvest sliced bread, and nearly 9 point to a pint of milk. So it just goes up and up every single year. And of course there's other information about this. It says nearly 30 billion of increases will come from higher prices, with the rest from a more confident consumers beginning to buy more. So problems with the food. This is what the Lord warned. This is what you're seeing. And all I'm please asking, believe what you're seeing, because it is from God. He's just using me as a vehicle to point these things out to you, but it was written by the Lord. These things were going to happen, and if we're seeing all of them, why wouldn't you believe what the Lord is showing us? Now, along with, as I mentioned, famines, we know that Christ warned about the intensity of the sun, the scorching of the sun. Revelation 7, chapter 7, verse 16. Never again will they hunger, never again will they thirst. The sun will not beat upon them, nor any scorching heat. Revelation 16:8. The fourth angel poured out his bowl on the sun, and the sun was given power to scorch people with fire. And this is only one of many, many articles. Despite rain, drought not over in New Mexico. And I'll let you go to this article. You could read it for yourself, but I just want to show you one of the examples of what's taken place, because a majority or a large part, for example, of the United States is in a drought condition. Now, as far as the animals, the birds, and the fish dying, which I've been reporting on a daily basis, there was another article today, September the 18th, more than 100 deer found dead west of Missoula. So, again, another one of those reports. And as well as the fearful signs, the sights, these great signs that the Lord warned about, another one of these volcanoes erupted. You'll see in Sumatra. Again, in 2013, there's been a lot of activity with earthquakes and the ground shaking as a result, obviously, of these volcanoes erupting. Now, as far as the United States, a lot of people think the United States is the last power in Daniel's prophecy found in Daniel chapter 2 and 7, where the Lord shows us the Babylonian Empire, then the Medo-Persian, then the Greece and Roman Empire. And at the end of the day, when these prophecies are all fulfilled, that the 10 toes would be a revived Roman Empire. And it is not the United States. The United States had nothing to do with the first Roman Empire, and they won't have anything to do with the second Roman Empire that is reborn from the first Roman Empire. And just to show you one of the ways that the United States is going out, in my book, I've shown you all the different progressions of how many people are going on food stamps. You could read this in my book. Everything is documented. Now, the new result just came out saying that almost 50 million Americans now on food stamps as nation plunges into the widespread poverty. Now, my last book, there was 47 million people on these food stamps, and that has gone up under Barack Hussein Obama's administration. Barack Hussein Obama doesn't have a clue how to bring America out of the debt. And when you take a look at the debt clock, you'll understand that, because the debt clock is pushing towards that 17 trillion mark. And the United States is at a standstill just about for production and the economy, which is not good. So one other thing to consider, and then we're closing. In October, which is only a few weeks away, the United States is going to have to decide whether to keep printing the money or to stop the government. Barack Obama may stop the government. If he does that, America will be torn apart. For example, if you're on welfare, or if you're on government assistance, or if you're working for the government, you won't be getting any checks because the government will shut down. Could you imagine how many millions of people who are on entitlements that this would affect? You would have chaos. So America, we know something is going to happen to America to downgrade America in a superpower. As a matter of fact, in many of my posts, I have already posted on mainstream news showing us around the world that the United States is no longer considered the superpower of the world. They are digressing. And the reason why, one of the reasons why, is making room for the Antichrist, who will come from a revived Roman Empire. So thanks again, everybody, for allowing me to come into your home. This is Frank Demore with the End Times Research Ministry, just saying this. Today, Jesus has come into your room. He's talked to you. You've watched his signs, not Frank Demore's signs. I'm just showing you the result of what he told us. And so I'm praying that you would receive him as your Savior. Listen to what he says. because the Antichrist will be coming soon, and you do not want part of that kingdom. And you don't need to be part of that kingdom, because the Lord will take you away. The rapture of the church, God's promise to remove the Christians from the wrath of God. This is Frank. God bless.